All right, shalom, y'all. I'm sorry about that. Due to some type of technical difficulty, the lesson that was actually scheduled, it just stopped working. So we gonna pick back up on this. Still on the same channel, but it's not the scheduled lesson. We still doing the same lesson, Feast of Purim, but this is not what I had scheduled on YouTube. So we just gonna pick back up. Hopefully everything be smooth from here on out. All right, so let me go back to the lesson. And what I'm gonna do is, due to the sake of time, I had I didn't put all the details in this one how I did in the one that was scheduled. So after I'm done recording this lesson, I'm gonna go ahead and add the original details back, and I'm gonna try to merge the two videos together. But because this is going to be such a long class, I'm gonna break it down into clips also, maybe like 15-minute clips as well. That way, if you go back and watch it for a second time, or you share this with friends and family, they can watch clips. That way they don't have to watch the whole lesson if they don't want to. But we at picking back up at verse, let me see, verse 18. It says, likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a commandment from him, and let it be written among the law of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered. Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another, that it that is better than she. Now remember the fact that one of the practices of the Persians and the Medes, as we see right here, is that once a king writes something down, it's not supposed to be altered, it's not to be changed, even by the very king himself that made the decree, is not to be changed. Remember that law, because later on we're going to show something with that in particular. All right, let's go to Esther 1 and 20. It says, and when the king's decree shall be published throughout all his empire, and the wives shall give to their husbands honor and small, and the same pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Memucan, for he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writer thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. Okay, so the king made this decree and he sent the letters out that pretty much every man's household should be in order and every man's wife should listen to him, right? All right, so now it says Ahasuerus searches for a new queen. All right, so Vashti was kicked out, and now he's searching for a new queen or a new wife, right? Esther chapter 2, verse 1 through 7 in this slide. It says, after these things, when the wrath of the Most High, when the wrath of the king, Ahasuerus, was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the woman, unto the custody of uh, Hag, keeper of the woman, things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the king, and it pleased the king, and he said, and he did so. So pretty much he thought that it was a great idea for him to find a new queen and to pretty much gather all the fair young virgins, which mean the ones that look the best throughout all his empire, and bring them to his house, or to sort of what we would call a harem. pretty much, right? Now in Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shemiah, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. So this is one of the key people for the feast of Purim, Mordecai, right? Which was a Benjamite. Verse 6, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. Okay, so we see Mordecai was a first generation Israelite within the Persian or Persian Medo captivity or the Babylonian captivity, should I? The time when Nebuchadnezzar pretty much laid siege against Jerusalem, overtook it, and took our people into slavery, right? All right, verse 7. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter. So one thing that we always say is that Mordecai was Esther's uncle, but really Mordecai was Esther's cousin. He wasn't her uncle, but he raised her up, so he was more like an uncle to her, right? It says, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. Right. So he raised her up like a daughter. So therefore he was more like an uncle to her, but he was really all in all her cousin. He would have been like an older cousin. So he would have been a father figure in a sense, or like an uncle figure, if that's a word in a sense. Verse 8. So it came to pass when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, yeah, that's the right word, it said Hag before Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. The introduction of Esther is, and the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things for purification. So when she even became his wife, it says pretty much he was pleased about her, right? So she pretty much already went in favor with him over the other women that's there. It says, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the women. So he liked her so much, he liked her above all the portion of the house. So he already, pretty he pretty much already know what he wanted at that point. He pretty much see her as being the best female or the best woman that's there in the house at that time. Verse 10. Esther had not showed people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her she should not show it. Right? So at this time, Ahasuerus doesn't know that Esther is a Jew, or Esther is an Israelite, or Esther is most likely a Benjamite, because that's what her cousin is, Mordecai, right? All right, verse 11. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. Now, when every maid's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purification of the women. So this is something that they used to do back in the day. And you still got some sisters that do this now, but pretty much they would purify themselves, right? Before they would get married and things like that. No, I won't go into it, but pretty much they would purify themselves, you know, rid themselves of any type of defilements, and not just that, even if they wasn't defiled, they would purify themselves, right? Verse 13. Then thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her to go house of the woman unto the king's house. So he's already given her special treatment once again. Verse 14. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned to the woman. to the custody of uh, Sh- Shash, Shash, Shashgaz, Chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. All right. It says, King has a celebratory feast and makes Esther queen. All right. Esther chapter verse 15. Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast, and he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. So the king pretty much had a feast, and it was the feast of Esther, and he chose her to be his queen, and he placed the crown on her head and things like that, right? So now we see Esther becomes the queen, right? Okay. She's moving up in society somewhat. Well, not somewhat, she's moving up in society altogether, period. It says Mordecai prevents an attempt on King Ahasuerus' life. Remember this also. This is important, right? Let's go to Esther chapter 2, verse 19 through 23. If y'all can take notes too and just write down these important parts. When the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred or her people as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hands on the king. And laying hands back then mean the same thing that laying hands on somebody today do. It means, killing somebody or fighting them. But in this case, you wasn't about to try to fight the king and think you was going to continue to live. They was trying to actually kill the king. They made an attempt on his life, right? Also, one thing that's worth mentioning is that Mordecai, notice how it always talks about him being at the king's gate and things like this. You can't get to the king's gate unless you somebody that work for the king. Now, whether you know the king or not, whether you best friends with him, whether he know you by first name, whether he pay attention to you when you walk past, whether he speak to you when you speak to him, that really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, the fact that he sat at the king's gate, that means that he of some type of authority within Persian society already, right? He may have been one of the keepers of the gate himself, along with the other two. All right. Verse 22, it says, And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. So she told, King Ahasuerus, hey, Mordecai, my cousin said he heard this, this, and that, and two of your chamberlains is going to try to make an attempt to kill you. Verse 23. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles of the King. So throughout, on a daily basis of things that the king go through, the important things are written down in a book called the Chronicles of the King, right? So he write down the matter in the book, Make sure y'all remember that, okay? He writes down the fact that Mordecai reported to Esther, and Esther reported to him that two of his chamberlains was trying to make an attempt on his life, and he found out that it was actually true. They were plotting and scheming and conspiring to make an attempt on the king's life, right? Okay. Next slide. Hold on, let me click this. So it's Studio YouTube is sharing screen audio. All right. 3:1, Esther chapter 3, verse 1 through 7 on this slide. It says, after these things, did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So now you got this Agagite. When you go back to the book of Exodus and when you go to the book of Genesis, you find out that Agag is the chief son of Amalek, right? He's the royal seed of the royal seed. Amalek is the royal house of Edom, and within Amalek, the royal house of Amalek, or the royal son of Amalek himself, is Agag, right? This is pretty much like you know how the tribe of Judah is the king's tribe of Israel. The tribe of Agag is the king tribe, not just of Esau, but of Amalek also, which is a descendant from Esau, right? So now we see this Haman being promoted over all the princes. So at this point, he's second in command under the king, ruling everything, right? Only less to the king by name. Outside of that, he could pretty much do whatever he want to do according to the king, right? Let's go to verse 2. It says, and all the king's servants. Oh, let me mention this also. The tribe of Agag in particular is the tribe that tried to kill off Moses and the Israelites as they were coming out of the wilderness of Shur, going into the wilderness of Sinai, right? And pretty much the Most High said that these were going to be our enemies forever and that he will wipe them off of the face of the earth. So that's worth mentioning because we see you got Esther, which just became queen. You got Mordecai, which is already, I don't want to say a dignitary, but he works, at the king's of a high stature also. And now you got being put second in command to the king, you got Haman, which is an Edomite, in particular, the arch enemy of the Jews, right? It says, and all the king's servants that were in the king bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him, but Mordecai bowed not, nor did reverence. So Mordecai know what's going on. I'm not bowing to this dude. This dude is him and his people is the enemy of me and my people. I'm not bowing down to this guy. So pretty much Mordecai don't bow down to him. And this is more proof that Mordecai already had some type of position at the king's gate, because why is he at the king's gate and he's expected to bow? Once again, he works for the king or works at the king's palace, right? Esther 3:3. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgresses thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman. So Haman never noticed that this guy Mordecai never bowed down to me. With so many people bowing down to him every time he came to the king's gate, he never noticed the one man, Mordecai, not bowing down to him until the other people at the gate told him, hey, man, Mordecai never bow when you come around. It says to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So he told them pretty much, my people and his people don't get along. I'm not bowing down. I'm a Jew. Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. So now he's envious. It says, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. So first he wanted to kill Mordecai alone, right? And let's see what happened. It says, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. But once they showed him the people of Mordecai, let's see what happened. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. So at first, his contention was just against Mordecai. But then once they showed him the nation that Mordecai belonged to, or the people that Mordecai belonged to, and he realized, hold up, this guy's a Jew. Now he wants to kill all of them, all the Israelites, Mordecai and Mordecai family. And the reason why he felt that way is because he know what happened in ancient times, right? In ancient times, at one point, David killed so many Agagites that the Bible tell you that he killed all of them. But then you see them reappear later on after the time of David. And the reason why that is because sometimes the Bible uses what's called hyperbole, right? And what that is when something happened at such a great volume that pretty much it will exaggerate what actually happened. So, like for example, it tell you David killed pretty much all the Agagites. That don't really mean he killed all of them. That mean he killed so many of them. It was like probably all of them, or the vast majority of them. The same way when you read in the Old Testament and it tells you that all the Moabites and all the Ammonites were killed off in the Old Testament. But then within the same Old Testament, later on down the line, you see Ammonites and you see Moabites. That means it was a whole lot of them killed off. So much so that the author of the Bible kind of exaggerated and said, man, all of them got wiped out. That just means the vast majority got wiped out. If it was 1,000,000 of them, 700,000 of them got wiped out. All right, let's read. Let me see where I'm at. I'm at verse 5. It says, and when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought, no, I read there already. I'm at verse 7. Yeah, I'm at verse 7. It says, in the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman, from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is month of Adar. So the word pur or Purim comes from the word pur. And when you look up pur, you look up Purim. Purim just means Purim makes it plural, lots. So one is cast lot, right? Cast lot or cast pur, and then Purim would be cast lots. They cast lots. All right. So pretty much when you look into lots, they're not really sure exactly how it was done in ancient times. But what they do know for a fact is that lots, it can be a game or it can be a form of gambling, right? In regards of high probability. So, like for example, throwing dice can be a form of casting lots. Playing different dice games can be a form of casting lots. Then you got what's called pickup sticks. Whoever got the longest stick wins. Whatever the prize may be, whatever the bet may be. Usually, when you talk about lots in ancient times, it was done in order to find out who was going to, I don't want to say win, but who was going to take possession over an item. So, like, for example, they cast lots for Christ's clothing, right? So, for example, Christ had a crown on his head, or Christ had a robe on. They cast lots for the robe, meaning they could all pick up a rock just off the ground, and then they will all cast it, meaning throw it down or just lay it down on the floor. Let's see who got the biggest rock, and whoever got the biggest rock, they can win the robe that Christ had on, or they can win the sandals that Christ had on. So it's kind of like a raffle. Pretty much, that's what it is. All right. So what was going on at this time when it says they cast pur, they was casting pur to see who would win different who this is very evil, but they was casting lots to see who would be able to kill Jews in different portions or different regions or different locales of the kingdom or empire of King Ahasuerus. So we casting lots, and we gonna see who gonna go and kill these Jews off over here, or who gonna kill these Jews off closer to India? Who gonna kill these Jews off in Egypt? Who gonna kill off these Jews in the land of Media? Who gonna kill off these Jews over here in the country of Athens? Who gonna kill these Jews at Shushan-Palace? This is what they was doing. They was making a game off of our demise, or what they thought was going to be our demise. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is 3 and 8. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, therefore a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Not all. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. Let me say this too, because I know you got even Israel that have used the quote, when in Rome, be as the Romans. But as we see, our people never ideology. I never had that concept. We always disobeyed the quote unquote laws of the land. Now, I'm not telling nobody, I'm not trying to persuade nobody to not obey the laws of the land. But what I'm saying is when you have laws that conflict the laws of the most high God, then yeah, you disobey them laws. But if it's something that could that can be done to where you're not breaking the most high's law, okay, then you can deal with that type of law. Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasures. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. See, it's reminding us that that's the Jews' enemy, because they tried to kill us off, and at one point we killed a lot of them off. So he understand the history, Haman, right? Hold on one second. Hold on. Okay. Excuse me. All right, verse 11. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Now remember, Haman don't know that his wife is one of these people. He don't know that his wife is a Jew or whatever, right? Keep that in mind. It says, then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written. So it was written in his name because he gave Haman his ring, which was a signet ring, right? He said, seal it with the ring. Okay. So everything that Haman sealed, it was as if the king had sealed it himself. It says, and sealed with the king's ring. Verse 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day. Even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing and the commandment to be given to every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.